Now officially 7:30, which means we are simulcasting. This is on my, of course, personal Facebook page, facebook.com/MikeTFox5. And then it is also on Fox Local. So welcome everybody on Fox Local. The point of these, I do these on my Facebook if you're watching on the app here right now. And generally all this is I'm trying to, we get 2 minutes on television, 2 to 3 minutes to tell you what the forecast is. Like, boom. We don't really get to explain much behind where, you know, we don't pull the numbers out of the hat. We like to think we do a little bit of research back here on them. And we have a lot of different weather models we look at for what's coming up with this event. So I'll take you through it. There are some differences between this and January. I have some concerns. I have some areas I think will do better than others. So we'll go through it all. So hello, and I'll occasionally be talking to folks over there on Facebook who will be asking me questions. Like I see Chrissy saying hello. Hello, Chrissy. Hi, Scott. Hi, Kevin. Kevin's excited because there's no school down in Stafford County, Virginia. I guess they decided to close. And there are a number of schools that have either decided to close or dismiss early. Certainly something that's been a little bit of a surprise for me. A lot of times with these warm air advection events, it starts earlier than expected. This one has been delaying just a little bit. Like last week when we left you, it was coming in during the morning. Now it looks like it'll come in probably during the early afternoon, at least the downtown DC. So that's been a little bit of a surprise, but that also causes a couple of concerns for me. So we'll take you back real quick while I get the graphic ready and show you outside. This is live look from our sky cam at the National Harbor. Beautiful view of the Capitol wheel. We'll jump into graphics here, and we'll start you off with who's got the warning and who's got the advisories. Lots of questions about this. So winter weather advisories to the north. The city of Baltimore tomorrow is not under a winter storm warning. They are under a winter weather advisory. DC, Montgomery, Prince George's, all the counties in Northern Virginia, Northern Neck, Southern Maryland, they are all under winter storm warnings. And really the only difference between these two, at least in this particular case, so if they think that travel can be especially rough, regardless of how much snow is falling, if it's a dangerous combination of snow, sleet, ice, they can issue winter storm warnings because they want people to take it more seriously. In this case, it's just a simple difference of snow. Winter storm warning officially, I believe, is 5 inches of snow over a 24-hour period, or the potential for it. Doesn't necessarily mean we'll get it. But if they issue a winter storm warning in DC, that means they think we have a better than not shot. Like 5 inches is a reasonable call in DC. In Baltimore, that's not to say they can't end up. I mean, you see Anne Arundel and Howard just to the south of Baltimore. Like I think BWI is kind of right where I have the arrow. So technically, BWI, Thurgood Marshall Airport, I believe is under a winter storm warning, whereas the Inner Harbor in Baltimore is just under an advisory. Really the only difference there is that, so okay, looks like Marine Corps Base Quantico has a code yellow. Thank you, Scott. Yeah, that's not a bad call. I don't think any of these are bad calls. And it does look like, originally I thought a lot of folks would just close tomorrow because why send the kids to school and then run them home as fast as possible? But it looks like with the delay of the system, probably a better shot at closings on Wednesday after the storm starts to exit versus today. Versus tomorrow, given the later timing. Now, all these counties down here, a lot of these are starting to close because it does start sooner, farther to the south and west of town. So let's get into it. Generally speaking, these are my headlines for the storm. I do want to note the temperatures because they're probably going to be above freezing at the start of this event. I've got models saying anywhere from 34 to like 38 degrees when the snow does start to fall. Key difference between this event and the one in January. We flipped temperatures around. If you recall, December, around Christmas time and beyond, actually ended decently warm. But then around New Year's Day, we completely flipped the pattern and we were cold. And we were very cold that first week of January leading up to that snow event. So the ground was frozen and ready for every flake that fell in January to stick on it. Not going to be the case this time. We were well into the 40s today. I believe most of the last week here we've been above normal temperature-wise. You know, we've had the occasional colder day and some colder nights, of course. But as far as getting temperatures steadily and for a long period of time below freezing, it has not been the same as January. So initially, as the storm comes up, we are going to lose some of the snow to ground melt. That's just going to be how it is. Doesn't mean it's going to ruin the event. It just means that we have to wait for snow rates to pick up, because that will both A, cool the ground, and B, you want to start snowing at a rate faster than the ground can melt it. Once you do that, you will start to stick the snow pretty fast. So that'll be something that we're watching for all around the DC region. I think that's a pretty widespread thing that we're watching tomorrow. Heaviest snow likely tomorrow evening. Evening commute and beyond will be extremely troublesome. If you don't have to be out, don't be out. Snowfall rates at their peak, not throughout the whole event, but at their peak, over 1 inch an hour, maybe 1.5 inches per hour rates, particularly down to the south and west. What do I like after this event? We'll talk more about that, Fabian, at the end of this discussion. We'll get through one at a time here. Snow ends after midnight then on Wednesday. So, and then, by the way, Wednesday afternoon and evening, we get you ready for storm number 2. Now, that one primarily is going to be rain, and that's the other thing about this event. This will not do what January did. January was a long-lived, right? We laid the snow on the ground, and I think in my front yard, I mean, there's still little piles of snow from January from where it was shoveled, but it definitely stayed in my front yard for the better part of 3 or 4 weeks because of how cold we were. That is not the case this time. This is a warm air advection event. We're bringing up warm air with this snow. And then the second storm has a lot more upper level energy to it that's going to drag that warm air up even more. It will still feel cold on Wednesday at the surface, temperatures in the 30s, but above our heads, we're going to have a lot more warm air, and this is going to be a rain and in some areas to the west, perhaps a freezing rain event for them. Again, we'll talk more about it coming up in just a moment. So let's dive into the guidance. I did put temperatures. Now the graph, it's hit or miss sometimes with how it does snow events, but it's by far the quote-unquote prettiest model we have here at Fox 5. It's what we show as the future cast. It's the one driven by WSI. Again, it does some things well. It does some things not so well. Sometimes it's a lot like the NAM. It's a little too convective with its banding, so it puts down heavier than not amounts, which is a concern because with these runs of the graph that have come in today, which we call our future cast on air if you watch us here at Fox, a lot of it's been lighter. And I mentioned, I think, a couple of times, and we look at, as we get towards the 1 o'clock hour, you see the snow filling in. That's why, like, Montgomery County puzzles me, because Loudoun's out 3 hours early, Fairfax is out 3 hours early, I believe Prince George's is out 2 hours early, but Montgomery has so far said, right now we're going to open and close on time. Now, that could change. They said that they might reassess that later tonight. But at the moment, they plan on closing on time. But look at 1 o'clock. You are starting to get snow. Now, it's probably, again, not sticking right away. You see the time, or the temp there, 34 degrees above freezing, but it's close in Washington. And you're certainly not snowing at a rate that's going to pile up fast initially. Now, we get deeper into the afternoon and evening. That overrunning event starts kicking in more and more. You certainly see some of the deeper blues going in there, especially south and east of town. So, you know, this, again, oddly enough, this winter, it's been the winter of southern Maryland. Fredericksburg through La Plata, Waldorf, Calvert County, St. Mary's, northern St. Mary's, they should do well with this storm, just like they did. I don't think they get more than they got in January. That's my opinion there. I don't think they're going to get as much as January, but I do think that counties to the west, or I'm sorry, to the east, definitely do better than DC. You want to be, you know, they say as a forecaster, you want to be so close to the rain snow line that you can smell the rain, and that's where the heaviest snows typically fall. And that's usually where the rates are highest. So all this down here, you know, at least on this version of the model, heaviest snows, gloopiest snows, so to speak. That would be the big wet flakes. Low ratios, but heavy. And then the farther north and west you go. And I just had someone, what about Jefferson County, West Virginia? I am very concerned about these areas north and west. They have bust potential in my mind. I've seen back and forth from forecasters up there. The problem I have when you pull in a warm air advection system like this, that goes from southwest to north and east like this, is what we have to deal with in the mid-Atlantic here is where the highest peaks are. And you have high elevation in this vicinity here. And what happens is on the western, on the western side of the slopes, if your highest slopes are right where I drew that line there, on the western side of those slopes, you're going to get some upslope flow. You're going to get upslope enhancement to the snows on the western side. Now, on the eastern side, you're going to get the opposite. Air is going to be coming down. I'm trying to draw as best I can. Down the mountains on the eastward flank of these. And a lot of times when you force air down, you're going to dry out the column. And when you dry out the column, you get holes in the snowfall field. I just don't think snow is going to be as heavy or as consistent north and west. Your temperatures will be colder, so your ratios will be higher. And you could potentially, lay on the ground even if the rates aren't 1 inch plus up that way. But I am concerned that areas up there, instead of 2 to 4, it could be more like 1 to 3 in some of those. I'm kind of highlighting from Harrisonburg up north through, not even, Harrisonburg's pretty far south, like the Winchester, or just south of Winchester up through Hagerstown and north of there, that kind of bubble. Maryland and West Virginia panhandles, generally speaking, unless you're west of the highest peaks. I worry that you guys could get the gap and get a little less up there. That's a concern zone for me. And then, of course, down here to the south and east, all depends, because, I've still seen models coming out tonight in this general zone showing 12 to 14 inches of snow, but you see the problem there is that warm air starts to fight and you do mix over. And a lot of the 10 to 1 model guidance I'm seeing posted on social media it counts sleet as snow. And it's counting at a 10 to 1 ratio when it'll be a much lower ratio. So you have to, if you're a forecaster, you have to try to account for ratios and what's sleet and what's snow. That's difficult. That can be very difficult, and what makes forecasting extremely tricky in these events. Anyway, we'll push it on forward. You do see that things do calm down as we get into the overnight hours there, and we're dry by the time we get to Wednesday morning's commute, maybe some snow showers in the mountains, but primarily this event will be done by sunrise Wednesday. It should be done several hours before sunrise Wednesday. So that model I just showed you is going a general 3 to 6 plus kind of along the DC line, I-66 line and south. Areas to the north, you see what I mean, where I'm concerned about the gappiness. Martinsburg, it's still got 3, that's not bad, but Hagerstown, it's got 2. Cumberland, it's got 2, and there's some areas up north of Baltimore that do have less than that on this model. It's got the heaviest, half a foot there, Fredericksburg, Montross, Leonardtown, that area south and east of town. And a lot of the model guidance has been here, and I'll show you a bunch more coming up in just a moment here. To contrast, a favorite model of a lot of folks is the HRRR. Now, it can sometimes struggle in certain events, but I think on overrunning events, it tends to do okay. The things I see that it struggles with a lot are when it's more convective based. You get a storm system blowing up off the coast. It really wants to juice some of the energy and get it almost to be like thunderstorm type convection when it's not in the winter time. So those are the events I really watch the HRRR for messing up with. I think it'll still give you a general flavor here. I do like this, and it's overblown on the model. It's way overblown on the model, but it is showing you the general gist of, hey, we're going to start above freezing. Now, a lot of this to the north, these lighter greens, they're not going to hit the ground because the atmosphere will be dry initially, will be above freezing, and then as the storm comes up, the atmosphere will moisten, temperatures will drop, what we call the wet bulb temperature, and we might start as a brief period of rain or mix, but quickly go over to snow. But the HRRR is at least accounting for the warmer temperatures at the surface, even if what it's showing here is probably a little exaggerated. But it does go over the snow as we get into the afternoon. It holds the system together a little better, but I do note the drier look to the north and west, those lighter whites, those lighter blues, showing you a much drier atmosphere and a much drier situation north and west. So gaps in the precipitation field in that zone certainly worry me. But you still see the steadier snows down to the south and east of DC. And that's got a nice look to it. That would be a steady good snow, DC south and east. And you'd certainly, on this particular graphic at this particular time, you would definitely get your heaviest snows somewhere just to the north of where that mix line is. And that's why I do think a lot of the foot plus totals I'm seeing coming out down to the south there, you can see why I'm skeptical of that because they are going to fight a rain-snow mixed line down that way. And I wouldn't be, I know no model's showing it, but a lot of times that mix fight's closer to DC than it looks possibly at the end of the event. I wouldn't be shocked if we see a period of mix, but I don't think it's going to impact our snowfall totals that much at this point. Again, that would be as the event's wrapping up. I could see enough warm air sneaking in at the mid-levels. Her certainly doesn't show that. It leaves it as all snow right through the early nighttime hours, and then off it goes as we get into Wednesday morning. And again, this is timed out nicely, I think, for folks who do want the day off on Wednesday, because we'll just be digging out on Wednesday morning. Now, it's certainly not super high with those amounts. And you can see there, 1.6 Hagerstown, 1.8 Martinsburg, 2.5 Frederick, like less in that zone of concern for me, right, up that way. It's certainly less and is something that I am concerned about that we'll have to continue to monitor here. But it's still got 3, 4, 5 inches down to the south and east of town there. And I think I needed to adjust the contours. I want to say this is a different model at the contour versus what I'm noticing as I show this to you is I believe I changed the numbers, but I forgot to change the contours. I'm not perfect sometimes, but I was about to say there should be a darker blue line that goes up like this. So I'm pretty sure what I'm showing you is the 18-hour HER, which doesn't get the full storm on the contour level, and I'm showing you the 48-hour HER at the numbers level. So don't let that fool you. That's my bad. I'm sorry. But there should certainly be some darker contours in the south compared to what's showing up there on the graphic. So let's move on from my mistake. We'll show you some of the other models that have come out. Of course, the popular ones, the American, this is the 18Z run. The American's by far been the coldest, as it often is. We mentioned it's got a cold bias. But the American model's been the coldest and the one with the most snow throughout the better part of the last 4 days. It has been pretty consistent with it too. It's the one that gets, you see Leonardtown, which is for some reason way to the north. I gotta fix that. Ignore the location of Leonardtown. You should be farther south than that. I don't know why you're floating up on me there. But you are 9.9 inches, Fredericksburg about 9 inches on the GFS. DC gets half a foot on the GFS, and in areas north, this does not have the gap. And I just worry it's a resolution issue, because GFS, 25 kilometer model at the best resolution, and that might not be capturing the elevation issues as much as some of the higher resolution guidances up that way. European model, of course, a favorite of so many forecasters, is trying a little bit more. You see Hagerstown, less than 2 inches of snow. Up that way, Frederick, just about 2 inches of snow. So, you know, that's an area I'm certainly monitoring. It still gets DC over 5, which would, and you know, there's your difference between your advisory at 4 inches for Baltimore and your winter storm warning at over 5 inches for Washington. I'm not saying that's why they made the decision, but they're just saying the odds are a little higher that DC gets 5 inches as opposed to Baltimore. That's what NWS is betting on, and that's why Baltimore's got advisories and DC has winter storm warnings. And you see to the south there, that 6-inch plus zone across southern Maryland. Fredericksburg goes back through Charlottesville. Those will probably be the areas where you would expect to see the quote-unquote jackpot zone with this event. So with all that said, this was the map. We adjusted. I didn't really adjust much from this morning's numbers. You know, Tucker and Taylor had the first go at it during the early morning hours. I know I saw on social media some folks were complaining because, you know, we're really, when we show a map for the DC area, we're really focused on our DC audience. And sometimes we're not paying any attention to what we're doing up in Pennsylvania. But I saw some folks online chirping at them because I think they had their 4 to 6 that kind of ran up through New York City. And they were like, New York City's not getting 4 inches of snow. I'll put New York in maybe getting some flakes. So a coating, that's what that white is. But I have 2 to 4 in that zone, and you can see how I'm doing that little dip. So that's sort of westward facing slopes. But I got that dip right here where it's topography force downslope. You get holes in the field. 2 to 4 might be aggressive. That might be more like a 1 to 3 zone. We'll see. Still like 4 to 6, 3 to 6 might be safer. But we like to try to keep the contours as even as possible. Of course, we didn't do that to the south because we went 5 to 8. I think your upper bound is really going to be 8, 9 inches. If we boom down to the south and east, there could be a few areas that maybe get 9, 10. Do I think anybody gets a foot? No, and I don't think. Maybe one spot got close to a foot or over a foot during the January event. But if no one hit a foot in the January event, I would be pretty surprised if we get a foot out of this event here. I'm retired and I'm staying home. Yeah, Don, there you go. Conversational snow for Hampshire. I wouldn't say it's conversational. I still think you'll get some on the ground. I just don't think you're going to get as much out that way for you, Jan. And you're welcome, Jan. I hope you have a great evening as well. So that's the general gist for tomorrow's event. Again, kind of mid to late afternoon for things ramping up, and then tomorrow evening is the worst of it. Not a bad snow, not a bad snow at all. And this one should officially bust my winter weather outlook, which is fine. Like when I wrote the winter weather outlook, what did I always say about it? I'm like, this is what the statistics are telling me. But if we bust high, I'm happy. You never want to bust a winter weather outlook low. I would rather us get more snow than expected, then everybody's happy. Well, most people. I know some people on here hate the snow. How quick will this melt? Quick. And I mentioned that at the beginning. This is very different from, and I'll show you why it's going to melt so quickly. This is different from that initial event, the one that hit us in January, because the next day, Wednesday morning, you wake up, you're digging out, you're brushing off your sidewalks, whatever. As we get into the afternoon of Wednesday, the second storm is going to come up. This one has a lot more. I know you're like, oh, temperatures at the surface, 35. We're snowing at 35 on Tuesday. Why can't we snow at 35 on Wednesday? Difference is what's going on above your heads. There's a lot stronger what we call warm air advection above our heads. Like a couple thousand feet up, temperatures are we got a strong warm nose, a big warm layer. You're melting snowflakes as they fall, and they just don't have time to refreeze before they hit the surface. Now, some of those western zones, and I don't think it's going to be as bad out there as what last Thursday and last Saturday. Like, I know DC didn't get a ton. I was slipping a little bit up in Howard County, but I know DC didn't get a ton of ice there Tuesday or last Thursday and this Saturday. But those areas out to the west, patchy icing, I don't think it's going to be terrible. Garrett County and the high elevations there are under winter storm watches for this event, which will probably go over to ice storm warnings there. But if you're outside the highest elevations, I don't think it's going to be a huge, huge deal there on Wednesday. However, the rain as it comes down Wednesday night could be rather heavy, and I do think that's going to melt a lot of the snow that falls throughout the day Tuesday. So you get it, you better get outside and sled in it, Tuesday morning while it's dry, or Wednesday morning, I'm sorry, while it's dry. Because once that rain starts moving in, not that you're going to wash it all away, but you rain on top of snow, you compact a lot. A ton of it compacts, and you do lose a lot to rain itself is above freezing, so you lose some to that. And then you're going to wash some away, especially if it comes down as a heavy rain. So that's that for Wednesday. Off it goes, and then Thursday, Friday are dry. You see temperatures well above freezing as we get into Thursday morning, so not thinking refreeze, anything like that. You even see Morgantown out there at 50 degrees. Thursday and Friday then are dry here in the DC area. I did put together the ice map. This would be for Wednesday. You do note the patchiness of it. It's not nearly as aggressive as the other two events. I think a lot of our area is dealing with a plain old cold rain, but a cold rain that will help folks trying to dig out from the snow on Thursday night. So that's our next 2 days. Temperatures, we'll go mid-30s tomorrow, mid to upper 30s. It will collapse and fall back as the snow starts to pick up in intensity. Again, what we call the wet bulb temperature. Wednesday's different. Wednesday is just general warming throughout the day. It may stay cold enough out to the west that they get a little bit of ice and freezing rain. I don't think that's an issue for DC at all. I think DC is just pretty much an entirely rain event. If we're extremely unlucky, maybe a little bit of sleet on the front end, but I think it's mostly rain here in DC on Wednesday and not much of a concern. In fact, it's probably more of a helpful rain than anything. Then we get into the day on, well, let me go back. I skipped a map. This is the National Weather Service outlook for President's Day weekend, which does look, I think there's going to be a monster storm in the east. Now, I don't necessarily think it's going to be too impactful in DC. The pattern was certainly scream and storm at me, but it looks like it's just not going to be forced far enough to the south, at least not right now. Could it trend there? I wouldn't say completely no, but odds are certainly leaning against it. But this is how the National Weather Service breaks down. They got DC, Baltimore, and the threat for heavy rain. That lighter green zone out to the west, they're saying, hey, we expect it to be heavy precip, but we're not sure if that means freezing rain. We're not sure if that means snow. We're not sure if that means sleet, something in between, transition event, all possible out to the west of town there, heading through the 15th and 16th of February. So the President's Day weekend coming up. And then the threat for the best shot at a nor'easter type snow north of New York City, right? New York State, interior New England. This could be an interior type nor'easter heading into the DC region. And this one will, you know, this storm tomorrow, that one in January, not nor'easters, not blizzards. This one would have the best shot at getting to that criteria because this will have a lot more wind energy to it. Again, I threw this together just to show you what's going on as we get towards the 13th, 14th, Valentine's Day, Friday. This energy out here to the west sliding across. There's the northern stream diving down, and they phase decently wonderfully across the northeast. Now the phasing happens a little bit too soon for those in the middle. Like this piece is pretty far north and this piece is coming up. So you're streaming up warm air ahead of the system, at least here in the mid-Atlantic on this particular model run. But I'll show you what it looks like at the surface and you can get an idea that it will be a big storm. I'm taking it at 11 a.m. on Saturday. You see the snow going across the Great Lakes. Strong area low pressure working its way through the Midwest, and you do see it's a cutter. It's passing up to the west of D.C. It's cutting up the Appalachian Mountains. But those areas that get snow, this could certainly be a driving, blowing snow to the north and west of this system, as there's a lot of wind energy with this one. So even here in D.C., we'll have to watch and see what the winds do. Really kind of supercharges as it gets to the north. Boston would probably on this track start as snow, go over the rain on the backside. But it's definitely got the wind component to it. Now, a lot of times the model overblows how much precip's left on the backside of these storms as they go north and west. So no, I don't think we're changing anything over. I think it's all rain here in Washington, given the model track at the moment. But certainly a lot of wind with it. Even here in D.C., it would probably be windy start to the weekend. By Monday, it's out of here. We're dumping cold air. That's cold. Coming out of Canada there, it's breezy, especially Monday morning. But it's out of here on Monday, and it should be a dry President's Day here in Washington. So for that event, I did throw the snowfall map together from the European model. So the model we just went through has this, and this is snow just on Saturday and Sunday into Monday of President's Day weekend. So it does have over a foot in some spots. You know, you see the purples up there in some of the highlands and mountains up of interior New York, but certainly the potential there for a bigger interior snowstorm, whereas DC, probably some rain, and we could even see some thunder out of that this weekend. But if you're making President's Day weekend plans, it looks like a rough start with rain, but it should be a nice finish there on Monday, just a cold finish. Temperatures will jump around. Definitely have models in the 60s to even close to 70 because of how strong the warm air advection will be out ahead of this storm. And then we dry it out, we cool it down by the end of the weekend. So that's that for my talk. And I'll go back because people are asking about the snow again. And I'll show you my map, and we'll compare it to what the National Weather Service is showing at their latest, because they did update their numbers, and it looks very similar to our map, maybe a little bit more aggressive in some of those southern areas. But there's our map for, well, that's the European. Hold on. I went too far. There's our map for the upcoming snow event, 5 to 8, Southern Maryland. Any of those counties in purple there. Fredericksburg, I like 5 to 8. Leonardtown, I like 5 to 8. Charlottesville. Those areas down just to the south and east of D.C., I think will have the heaviest rates. Will this be the last chance for snow this year? I don't believe so. I still don't think we're done with snow after this one yet. And I'll kind of go over that more in a moment. I am getting ready to say goodbye to the Fox Local viewers. I'll stay on my Facebook for a little while longer. But if you're watching from Fox Local, coming up at 8 o'clock, it'll be switching over to Fox 5 Plus for you. And you'll get Caitlin on the news, giving you the latest news, and she'll give you the latest weather. If you're interested in these talks, find me on Facebook, and I'll keep this one going. We'll talk a little bit more about the pattern ahead, which is very interesting. There could be a few more storms this month before things settle down and we get closer to springtime here as we make our way towards March. But yeah, 45 seconds left in this on Fox Local, and don't worry if you're watching on Facebook, I will stick with you. I do want to mention, for those wondering on Fox Local, before they switch gears on me, here is what the National Weather Service is showing. This was their latest map as of 5:30 tonight. So they are generally the same, right? 2 to 4 across the north, 4 to 6 around DC, which is exactly what we have. And then they got that 6 to 8 down to the south. So very, very similar to what we're going at Fox 5. I think a lot of the guidance I've seen from different forecasters has been that general flavor. Less north and west, more south and east, with the peak amount 6 to 8 inches. All right, bye Fox Local folks. Now we're back on just Facebook here. So again, that February 20th system, yeah. So, you know, will it be the last snow of the year here? And let's go ahead and stay on. I got the sheet up. And we'll look at the latest timing for them. I don't think the timing's changed all that much. Onset timing. So they're saying between 1 and 3 for the DC, you know, closer to 1 near Washington, closer to 3 near Baltimore for when this snow starts, for folks wondering about that. They have it ending for everybody between 7 and 9 a.m. on Wednesday. I think that's a little late. I think it'll be, you know, between midnight and 3 a.m. for when things wind down on Wednesday morning. That's just my 10 cents there. They're giving it a moderate storm impacts across mostly DC, Southern Maryland. Moderate impacts, hazardous driving conditions, closures and disruptions expected, and there are less for you all to the north and to the west there. So little fun tidbits you can find on the Weather Service page if you know where you're looking. But as we do the extended, and I don't think they go out nearly as far, because I think they only go out 4, 5, 6, 7 days. So that's that. They're giving you a 50 to 80% chance of fulfilling. I mean, you can see where the advisories and warnings are based on this. They're giving you only a 50 to 80% chance of getting 5 inches in DC, and they're giving them a 30 to 50% chance in Baltimore. So that's why Baltimore got the advisory. Is this a mix of snow and sleet? Depends on where you're watching from, Mark. The farther south you are, the more likely you are going to mix at some point. The farther west you are, the more likely you are going to mix at some point, at least south and west. But ahead of that, you will certainly be all snow, and that's where the heaviest snow will be prior to that changeover. So if we look at this is the 18Z Euro, I believe. Yeah, that just came in. And, you know, it's getting the snow in. It's pretty much all snow. What I watch so closely is this 540. That dashed 540 line is what we call the thickness. And why I watch it is because if it's rising steadily, which it is, that rising of the 540 thickness line to the north tells me that there's warm air getting into this somewhere. Now, if you stay close to the line, you're still all snow. And I will say the trend with this, like if I look at the trend, you see where it is here. You'll see it was a little bit farther north, like the last few days. Like up here, it was way up there, and I was like, oh, we're mixing like crazy. But then it came down in more recent runs, and it's kind of been bubbling there in northern Maryland during the peak of the events. It might have trended just a touch farther north in the 18Z run, but negligible in terms of the bigger picture here. But certainly by the time we get to tomorrow night, it's got a steady snow. You know, you're below 0 at 850. So when I look at this map, your sleet mix line is probably somewhere in this vicinity. And, you know, you're all snow up to the north. So, you know, it looks like a good event now here in DC compared to my worries of yesterday. I do still think that warm nose fights a little bit more than the model says, but we'll see. And then off it goes. And then this Wednesday one, you can see, oh, that's just, it erodes the layer like crazy. These thicknesses are tall for winter. So that's all rain coming our way on Wednesday. This fights a little bit Wednesday night, that cold layer. So freezing rain out there, but no question it would be rain for the second wave on Wednesday there. But this initial batch on Thursday, you know, closer to heaviest amounts. And when I say, like, you got to be careful with what you see, here comes the snowfall rates. And I've been stopping it, you know, 7 a.m. on Wednesday. So out of the new Euro, and this one actually isn't as bad as the other ones. It's got 8 to 10 across lower southern Maryland. These are the area when you're, I like to kind of divide it in two where they have the peak. So if you're north of this line, it's a better shot at pure snow. Now lower ratios. So I just erased it, my bad. So if you're north of this line I'm drawing, you know, better shot at it staying all snow and you kind of getting it. It's this southern part of it that you have to account for, a lot of it changing the mix, but the model's picking up sleet as snow. But I mean, this has given DC a solid, that's 6. I mean, we're right on the border of 6 in the new European. 10-1, so, you know, compact down a little bit. You're probably more like 4-5. Up here, Loudoun County, you know, you compact down, but not as much. 4 inches of snow up there. And then as you get into the counties up here, that's pretty widespread, 2-4. So it's not a bad look on that. And let's see what else is coming in. Now we're just chatting. So the 0Z HERS coming in. That's going to take a while, though, so we won't be able to see that. The NBM 0Z, let's see, it's just started coming in. So sometimes the snow portion of it, yeah, we're only 5 hours out into the snow. But we'll look at the 23Z, which was the last full run that came in, and you can see that out of the NBM National Blend of Models, it's a lot of different guidance. National Weather Service loves this one. You know, you can kind of see these dots here, but those are all 6-inch plus. So the dots would suggest that your 6-inch plus contour is somewhere in there. It just looks generally good with our map. So that's kind of your 4-inch plus zone. That's your 6-inch plus zone, and that's your 2-inch plus zone between the 3. And it'll drop. The gradient will be a lot faster than it shows here because of the mixing on the southern branch of the storm. It always is, wherever that warm nose is. So that's what the NBM's showing here. People are asking about the end of the month, so we'll go in, we'll look at the European, because it definitely has, it still has the highest 500 millibar skill scores in the extended range. I like my anomalies. Let me get to the 12Z because it goes out longer than the 18Z. So, you know, there's this storm, big ridge into the weekend. Here comes that, right, you know, look at the phase 1 right there. So, you know, here's the northern branch, southern branch. They phase here, which is a problem for us. You want the phasing to happen like here, just south of DC, and then the storm to come up. Right now, at least for the weekend storm, that phase is a beautiful phase. 2 pieces become 1, phasing. Great phase, it's just a little bit too far west. What I was hoping would help us out is this is a monstrous east-based NAO. Like, wow. You talk about your I'm going to struggle to draw this on the mouse, I'm sorry. But that is a monstrous negative west-based Greenland block. I exported it by accident. But great block. It's just not dug in enough farther south to get this to be a little bit farther south. That would drive the system farther south and east, and then we'd be cooking with gas here. Another thing, it's not quite linked up with the PNA, which is kind of neutral out to the west, but this low also needed to be just a little bit farther south. It's not a true 50-50, though it's got a beautiful look to it. However, as we go a little bit farther forward, so this polar vortex low swings on through. You dump cold air in. It's chilly there, much of the days beyond President's Day. And then, you know, the model suggests that, well, you're going to get another wave here in the south. It's going to come in. It comes in right here, and it starts driving south as a ridge builds behind it. You still have this beautiful block here. You got your ridge going up here. And that's a really good look. And this is what I've already seen forecasters. I'm not talking about it yet because I want to get through tomorrow first. But I've certainly seen forecasters talking about this is in a really good spot. That's for sure. Probably better than January was. This is okay. I mean, it's better than what it looks like for the weekend. But you do have a nice trough underneath, and you have that's a good 50-50, close to it. Maybe just a touch farther south, but for being this far away, that's a really good signature for some sort of winter development there in the eastern half of the United States as we head through the second half of next week. It's a nice pattern. Now, where could it fail you? Well, if this is not as strong, a little bit farther north, if this is not strong enough, the PNA there's a disconnect there that allows this feature to not be as far south. If this weakens and allows this to be farther north, then you're looking at another interior storm. The one word of caution is if you use the old Norm Macdonald rule, not the comedian, the meteorologist from, I believe, Boston. The energy looks like it wants to hit the coast there, which means typically, you know, same latitude, it would try to exit somewhere over here. So the initial suggestion, but you know, the Norm Macdonald rule works a lot better when you're closer to the event than farther away. But if the energy hits there, it's probably going to want to try to exit there. So that would suggest that a northern trend's possible. But why there's excitement today for anybody who hasn't seen or heard, and I know not everybody has access to the European model, but I think this is the EPS. I'm going to go to the European 12Z cycle. And I'll just show the ensemble because I think the ensemble has it too. There's that second event. Here comes the weekend storm phasing out to the west. Beautiful storm, just too far west. And then they watch this second wave, which here comes the wave south, meets up. And for an ensemble to be showing a wave of low pressure right there, that's a nice signal for 10 days out. That's not bad at all on the European ensemble for 10 days out. It does also agree with its operational counterpart, which that was it right there. That's a snowstorm, and that's much more. That would be more a nor'easter type because you have a lot more wind energy. So if that happens to happen, that would be more closer to a true winter storm nor'easter event than these overrunning events that we've been getting in DC. But that's still, again, that's 10 days away. Lots of time to watch that. Not sure what's going to be happening with that one yet. So I like to let's do one at a time. So yes, we're watching the pattern. The pattern's decent as we get into the second half of next week. But we'll worry about the first half of this week first. And I'll wrap up with this. I'll take some comments too if anybody wants to, yell at me, whatever you want to do. That's just fine by me. Because I see Mike's like, expect between 0.5 and 9.5 inches accumulation in Fairfax. Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to argue that. Somewhere between 1 and 10 inches sounds accurate to me. I definitely think you'll end up somewhere in that range. Yeah, don't rear end anybody and get sued. I'm with that as well, Mike. You're very wise. I've been the victim of several rear endings, so please don't rear end me if you see me on the roads. Michelle's excited for snow. Major East Coast snow on the 20th. Maybe. We'll see, Fabian. I get it's a great block. There's no argument for me on the blocking. It is a wonderful block. It needs some, one block alone won't work out, or won't work out in the storm in the east. But multiple things going well. And, you just don't have the block. You got, you have the 50-50 low, and you got a PNA that's changing around that should help you out there. Weather Channel app, it's telling me 1 to 3 in Fredericksburg. Okay, well, go Weather Channel, I guess. Every forecaster is going to have it different. I don't know what model, any app, including ours here at Fox 5, but any weather app on your phone. I don't even know what my weather app, let's check it. What the default AccuWeather map, because I believe that comes from AccuWeather. It might just be the default one. Beautiful presentation. But as far as how much snow it's telling me I'm going to get here in DC, Tuesday, 4 to 5 inches. So you know what? It's kind of going with what we have. So this is what we have, and the weather app is saying 4 to 5 inches. Okay, not bad. I'd have to pull up Fredericksburg here and see. So let's do that. Fredericksburg, Virginia. So and then I go to Tuesday. So it says 6 to 8. I don't know who's. I don't know where you're looking at the weather app from. Do you think Southern Loudoun could get 5 to 6? Maybe extreme Eastern. 5 to 6 isn't out of the realm of. I'm 4 to 6, and so yes, I think they very much could get 5 to 6, Tyler. So we'll see. Justin, thanks for tuning in. Appreciate it. I'm sure this won't be. We are going to do a Facebook Live tomorrow. We'll track the event live as it comes in. So around the same time tomorrow. Could this be more north trend than what models were showing for tomorrow? Yeah, but you would expect that now what I will caution is I know over the weekend, like, models were very heavy on Boston, and it ended up the heaviest snows were just north of Boston. I did see several forecasters talking about that. There's a guy I follow on Twitter, Eric Webb, who was chatting about that, about how that snow busted because it was much heavier to the north. So always have to watch out in a warm air advection-driven storm for a last-minute jump north and west. But usually it's not as dramatic. In most cases, once you get inside 24 hours, which we are in now, and do I think MoCo could get 8? I doubt it. I don't have much guidance putting 8 down in Montgomery County. There's something we like to say in the weather department, which is never say never in weather. I wouldn't say that it's impossible, and I think your upper bound, like if we go back to let's go back to the INET here, and they have an upper bound map, which they're saying, so, you know, they're saying 8 to 9 is your uppermost bound. So could it happen? Sure. They're only giving you a 10% chance of those amounts. But this would be a boom scenario in the National Weather Service eyes. That's your 90th percentile high-end snow amounts. But probably not going to happen like this. Occasionally we do have ones where the boom verifies, but this is more what they like, and that's kind of more what I like based on all the guidance. Could Prince William County, which is, for those who don't know, this county here, get 8? I think you have a better chance of getting 8 than Montgomery County does. So yes, you could. And I believe you're in our, let's go back to that graphic there. I believe you're in our 5 to 8. So yes, you could get 8. I won't promise it, but you could, Hank. What about Dover and Delaware? You're going to have some issues out there, I believe, with some mixing. Even if I go in on the latest Euro, it's my 18Z, see if I can get it back really quickly here, just by hitting the back button. This is the 18Z suite. So I thought at some point you might fight a little, oh, there's the ensemble. Let's go to the regular old European. Where, oh, there it is. It's hiding from me. And we'll back it up to this snow event. So your surface temperatures are a bit above freezing. But no, I mean, you're still mostly snow in Dover. You should do well in Dover. I would keep you 4 to 6 sounds decent there in my mind. I think they have 6 inches in Dover. Oh, I'm sorry. I was showing the wrong map. So looking here, Dover's in this general area where my mouse is. You're near the 540. You're right around freezing. You're below the 850 freezing line. Your thicknesses do rise, but not dramatically. You might mix just a little bit of sleet in later in the event, but you should definitely start as all snow, and you could thump. So I like you where we have you in 4 to 6. I think they got you 6 to 8, generally speaking, from the National Weather Service outlook, and that is there untouched. That's essentially, I found out from the National Weather Service that this map is basically the NBM, which is their favorite model. I've mentioned that a few times. It's this map here that's their official outlook, and you'd have to check. I want to say yours is Mount Holly. Does let's go to the Mount Holly page, because I want to say Mount Holly does Dover, and we can see. So here's theirs. So they have Dover in 6 to 8. So they do kind of run it right across. There's continuity there. So that's what they like in Dover for you there, Debbie. New HER looks weak. Let's see. And again, that HER is certainly a concern of mine. Now, I have had other forecasters say that the HER sucks at these events. Let's look at the composite radar precip type. Here it comes, here it comes. I mean, it depends on where. I mean, it's only out 23 hours, right? Certainly a lot of heavy snows in this area. At least that's through, what, tomorrow night? 6 p.m. But, yeah, I mean, it's showing the weaknesses where I'm scared that there will be weaknesses, which is north and west. I think you can see the mountain gapping here right? Like look at that dry slot right over like Martinsburg. Like I'm worried about busting there in terms of it being lower than expected in those zones. That's a legitimate risk to me because of what the mountains do out there. Doesn't mean they get no snow. You see it kind of fills in there. But I don't think this looks terribly. I mean, I still see good banding here. You know, and through, was it 0Z 7 o'clock? So through 7 o'clock tomorrow night, if the snow graphic even goes out that long. But yeah, through 7 o'clock tomorrow night, it doesn't have a lot of snow on the ground at all. You know, it's got nothing on the ground here. And it's just got a coating to an inch. Now that is just through 7 o'clock. So we'll see what it does the rest of the time here. But, you know, careful with the HRRR is what a lot of forecasters have told me. I like to look at it for the flavor of things. I don't necessarily trust its QPFs. Let's see what it did. Okay, so it's advancing northward there at hour 25, 7 and 8 o'clock. Which most of the accumulation with this event is probably going to be in like the, I guess I would say the 5 o'clock to midnight window. So that's when you really want to avoid it, but we'll see. And here's the 0Z NBM, and we'll see what the NBM is doing. So this is that new one. So the NBM hasn't really shifted all that much, even through 0Z. Another one I like to look at is the Shref, which is just coming in now, so it's going to take a few minutes. But I like my Shrefs to get the general flavor of the things. There is another one. It's called the HREF. Oops. HREF SPC. It's something I use for severe weather forecasting a lot. But I do like to look at I go through precipitation type. I can change this to the mid-Atlantic. And, it's got it coming up, and I think this is, let's see, this is I think it's multiple members here. But you can see where it's got the steadiest snows. It's DC south and east, right? Those lighter snows north and west. Certainly doesn't bring the mixed layer as far north as some of the other guidance does. So that could be a good thing for folks down there who are hoping for some bigger snows. Let's see if it has. So it's got the 1 hour snowfall. Oops, excuse me. It's got the 1 hour snowfall rate. So when you see that blue there, 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch per hour snowfall rates, with 1 inch plus possible in some of those southern zones as this goes on by. But I mean, if you're getting 1/2 inch of snow per hour, starting, let's see, that would be 8 o'clock there, 9, 10, 11, that's a quick 2 inch. If you're assuming lower bound, that's a quick 2 inches. And then, you're going to quarter. It adds up. But do I, again, I think at the end of the day, and these are just my personal opinions, could they cancel flights for Dulles Airport tomorrow night? Could they? Yeah, they could. I could certainly see it slowing some stuff down. I'm sure there'll be some travel disruptions. I don't know if it's widespread closures, but I could certainly see some travel disruptions tomorrow evening. Do you need me? Okay. I can certainly see some travel disruptions tomorrow at the airports, tomorrow night at both DCA, Dulles, and BWI. Again, my 10 cents on it is it probably is not going to be as bad as the January 6th snow that we had here. Temperatures were just much colder during that event. Every single flake that could fall on the ground was going to stick. We are going to lose some to melt this time. So all things that we're watching very, very closely with this particular event. So that's that. I don't know, do I have it? Oh, so they do give me a 12-hour kind of snowfall here. Now this is just 12 hours. So I have to add up. So this gets DC to what? To the verge of 4. To get 4, and that's a 6-inch contour there. Then I gotta add it. Forecast hour 48. So it's like a 4 and a 4. I mean, that might even get DC closer to 8. They don't have a total. Oh, 24-hour snowfall. Ha! I could have just clicked on that. So that model is a little bit more aggressive. with, you know, that's got 6 inches in DC. That's got 8 to 10 here to the south, a little bit more in the mountains. And it does go farther north. But since the HREF is a combination of a lot of different models, it too might be a little bit overexpansive in the snowfield, but that at least makes me feel a little better compared to, like folks are saying, this new HRRS coming in is not very nice for us. So I'll end that, or I'll end this with another check of the HRRR, which does take a while to come in, but we'll see how far out we've come. We're now at 28 hours, and I'm way too far zoomed out here. So let me go in closer for you. Mid-Atlantic. There you are. So, you know, it starts bringing it in, 2 o'clock, so a little slower than before. It's definitely heaviest. That's 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 o'clock. So this gets you through 11 o'clock, and that's sort of when the heaviest snows are in DC, and you got this heavy band down to the south and east, central Virginia, but a nice mixing layer there. But through this time period, as far as snow on the ground is concerned, it's got now DC by 11 o'clock. Is that midnight now? By midnight, it's got DC around 2-3 inches. So a little lighter. So that's the line. So that's a coating plus. So that's what that C is, coating plus. This would be your 2-inch plus line. And then this would be 4, and this would be 6. So that's the difference with the line through midnight. Now that's through midnight. Let's go out to 1, see if anything jumped. So it jumped a little bit farther north. But, you know, if the HRRR ends up being completely right with this event, you know, it might be one of those cases where if the HRRR is perfect, things come in a little lower. That's a nice jump. So, you know, now we're more like, you know, 3 to 4 in DC. There's that 4 to 6 fighting up through southern Maryland, and the 2-inch lines advancing north of Baltimore. So we'll see. It'll be a tricky call with the snowfall ratios and stuff. You know, summarize this. It's still snow. We're still getting snow in Washington. That's our map. But we're getting snow. It'll fall. Folks will be happy. It'll look pretty outside, and it's all going away very, very quickly this time. It won't stick around long. I do think it'll get a lot of folks off on Wednesday. School systems, OPM, just because of what time now it wraps up. At one time, just to put it into perspective, the old timing I had last week, I thought Tuesday most folks would be out, which some are. But I thought Tuesday most folks would be out because I thought it was going to start in the morning. Now it's starting later in the day, so some are going to go to school, at least start at school, and then go home early. But now it's not wrapping up until after midnight, so I think a lot of the school systems, because, you know, they got to clean their parking lots, they got to de-ice the sidewalks, you know, kid slips, they're getting sued. That's how Maryland works. You know, everybody in this region is very cautious when it comes to that stuff. So I think it'll take them a day to get everything cleaned up. Mother Nature will help them out on Wednesday night. I don't think there's widespread delays. There certainly will be some west of town, but I think Mother Nature does so much cleaning on Wednesday night that a lot of folks are on time, maybe delays on Thursday. But I don't think this is going to get you out of school for the entire week. I would be shocked if anybody gets out the rest of the week for that. The only zones I could see maybe having closings Wednesday and Thursday would be the ones in the west where there's elevation involved and there's a lot more icing involved than the ones around DC proper. All right, this was an hour-long live. We did well. I will be back tomorrow. We'll talk more about the snow, you know, what's falling. We'll track it live. If we're busting, I'll come on here and cry with you. But I'll, you know, admit defeat. You got to be willing to take the punches if you want to be a weather person. You know, weather Twitter is brutal. They'll let you know when you're making a mistake. Don't be scared. I can take it. But yeah, Wednesday's a rain event. Weekend's a rain event here in DC unless something changes trends drastically there. But at the moment, it's a rain event in DC. And then later next week, interesting pattern. We'll see if things work out or not. All right, that's it for tonight. I'm going to go eat some dinner, but I'll be back on Fox 5, DC 10 and 11. And then tomorrow we'll track this all live via Fox 5 all day. And then I will come back on here, Facebook Live it tomorrow night, and we'll live track radar. We'll go through some of the latest guidance, see what we're getting. Again, just trying to do my job and keep you guys ahead of it as best as I can. But at this point, that's the forecast, and we'll see what we get tomorrow night. Okay? Fingers crossed that it's something decent. HER's now out, if anybody's wondering, through 10Z, so now through 5 a.m. And it's got a little bit more on the ground. It's not as depressing as it looked initially. It's got DC up to about 4, like just under 4. And it does have 4 to 8 inches of snow across most of southern Maryland and the northern neck. And it's certainly lighter with those snows in northern Maryland. It only has an inch or 2 across the Mason-Dixon. We'll go one more hour. But yeah, so the new HER coming in right at this moment is still very light on totals here. Now that's 1 inch plus. This is 2 inch plus. And then that line right there is 4 inch plus. 4 to 8. I would just say this is a general, this whole area here is a general 4 to 8. And then a lot of this down here you're mixing out. So be wary of the totals down that way. That's all I got. I hope you have a wonderful evening, and it's dinner time, and I hope to see you at Fox 5 News at 10. We'll have a new model of the graph coming in, I think right now, that I'll show at 10 o'clock, and we'll put some new numbers out there, and we'll keep you updated ahead of the storm. All right, everybody, let me send you out with, I don't know, what do we got here? Someone's talking at a microphone. I got a Statue of Liberty. We don't say hi to New York City too often, so let's go up to New York City. And we'll take a look at Lady Liberty, who's hanging out. Will New York City get any snow at all tomorrow? Tougher call up there than it is here. Where would Manassas fall on this model? Okay, well, I won't send you out here yet. It's usually easier if I put the contours on. So counties, we'll put cities on. I don't think Manassas is one of the cities, but Manassas is kind of right where, in fact, you know what? I think I can go even closer. There's Maryland. I think Manassas is even on the Maryland map. Yeah. So on this county map, Manassas would be, and I'll go out through now, 7 a.m. So this would be the storm. This gets you through 7 a.m. Wednesday morning, when the snow should have definitely stopped by then. But Manassas is in 2 to 4. Fairfax is in 2 to 4. DC's in 2 to 4, but closer to the 4 than the 2 in all 3 of those locations. Sorry, I'm coughing here. I need some water. This is the general map. No, I'll just do that. So this is 4 to 8, and I'll tweet this out in a minute so folks can see it. This is 2 to 4, and this is a coding to 2. Well, really a coding to, well, I'll say to 2. But most up there are less than 2 inches of snow. So that's what the new HER shows in DC for this event. So we'll see how it works out. All right, back to Lady Liberty. As you can tell, I have a cough. I'm not sick. I can feel I got something in my throat, like a little piece of dust or something. So I'm going to go flush that out. I hope everybody has a good night, and we'll keep you ahead of this storm system tomorrow. Have a great night, everybody.